Dosm Rider Review. Hey YouTube, Dosm Rider here with my new-ish video series I talked about in a couple videos and on Twitter and whatnot. And like I said, it's nothing revolutionary to the world, but it's something I've done on my channel before, which is I'm going to be doing a series of top 5 videos. They usually should stick to top 5. I might extend it or subtract it depending on the topic. But I'm going to start with top 5 Power Rangers seasons. So we'll be doing that, and you're free to leave yours in the comments, maybe make a video of your own to link to it, kind of like those old, I don't know if they still do them, but the Getting to Know insert fan here. I used to do those a long while ago on a different channel. But anyway, so that's what this is going to be. My opinions tend to be pretty different than a lot of the fandom, so be prepared for that. But if you watch my videos, you probably already know that. But, also, of note, these videos are basically just going to be me talking. I'm kind of hoping to be able to do something a little neater with them down the road, but right now I just am not that good of an editor or anything, so I appreciate those that just watch me talking, and there's not going to be any fancy effects or anything. Maybe music in the background or something if I'm feeling frisky that day. I don't know. I don't know my life or future me when I edit this. But anyway, so let's get started. So as usual with these lists sometimes, I'm going to start off with some honorable mentions, which are ones that didn't quite make it onto the list. And those series are, I'm usually going to have about 2 for every list of honorable mentions if I have so many. I'll usually talk about them separately, but because there's a similar reason why I like both, I'll talk about both of them sort of together, which is the honorable mentions are Ninja Storm and Jungle Fury. Now, they can be pretty different, but the reason I just wanted to mention them together at once is that one of the core reasons that I love both of these seasons is that there are probably the 2 seasons that I have the most fun watching. Whenever I do a rewatch or when reruns used to be on and whatever, Ninja Storm and Jungle Fury are absolutely the most fun I have just rewatching the series, so that's why I kind of lump them together. But Ninja Storm, what I really like about Ninja Storm is I like its whole vibe. I like the whole vibe that Disney era brought in general. I felt like it was a little bit more, it's not 100% the way people talk, but I felt it was a little bit more natural in terms of dialogue and everything compared to some of the goody two-shoes and stiff things that some of the Saban era had. But what I liked about Ninja Storm is that it was more of a fun series, and it actually had some good storyline elements, like with Lothor and Cam and whatnot, and its own little mythology that it could be taken seriously when it needed to be in terms of, like, it had a good story, but it also wasn't afraid to make fun of itself. It was one of the first times I could remember a series really poking fun at itself and its formula, and I just really liked the humor in it a lot, and it was just an overall fun series. And the Ninja Storm headbanging music, wow, it's so crazy, I was losing it, but the headbanging music is like the best thing. Okay, and then Jungle Fury, I really like Jungle Fury a lot. I think it's the most fun, and the only reason, really one of the only reasons that it missed my top 5 is because I thought there were some mishandlings in the Jungle Master arc, and some confusion over Jared and Daishi. But everything else I just really liked. I liked the mythology, I really liked all the characters, I liked the tone, I liked the theme song, the original Rangers, even though those maybe could have been handled a little better too, but I love the suits for them. My favorite Rangers in it are spoiler alert for my top 5 favorite Rangers video. I'll call it the Frangers video. But yeah, both of those series, it's a ton of fun. I won't go on too much longer because they'll probably be talked about during their PR Dawson's Rambles videos. But anyway, so now on to the actual list. So here we go. Number 5. This is how this, instead of fancy transition, it's just going to be my fingers. I'm kicking this preschool style. Number 5, Power Rangers SPD. I really like SPD. I know that it's a popular-ish one, and there's also the people that lament that it's very similar to Deca Ranger, and I've seen Deca Ranger, and I see that, but I'll probably talk about this with a couple others too, but it's kind of one of those things where, yes, they did sort of translate a lot, but they also made it their own. I'm one of those weird people that when I watch the Sentai, I then have more respect for the PR and what they did, because even though they did follow things closely, SPD has a totally different vibe. I really love the tone of it. It's like this almost sci-fi-y, comic booky vibe that I can't really put into words because I'm not very articulate, but I love the vibe they created. I really love the cast. I like all of them pretty much individually on some level, and I think they have a really good chemistry, which you can see even outside the show, which I think is important. And I like the changes they made. I mean, it wasn't the most spectacular thing of all time, but I like the way they sort of interweaved everything together. It actually had a main plot with Grum, which is something that Deca Ranger didn't have. It was largely episodic. So I like that even though I like to describe a lot of the Disney seasons as taking the framework and sort of filling it in differently, and that's what I really liked about SPD, is it felt very differently, felt very different. I really enjoyed the characters and the world it was in, and there was a lot of memorable stuff in that series for me. And I loved the whole A Squad thing, and the theme song and the music is just, yeah, I liked SPD a lot. But yeah. So basically, my sums up of why I like each season is just going to be me rambling whatever thought comes in my head, so pretty normal. Okay, number 4. This is going to be one that's probably not on a lot of people's top 5 lists, especially even this high, which is Mystic Force, which is one of the most hated seasons amongst the groupthink of the fandom, along with Overdrive and Megaforce. I feel like Mystic Force doesn't get enough credit and is like bogged down by this stupid Mystic Force crap, which he does get a little more focus sometimes, but almost every Ranger series has a central figure, and almost any story has some sort of central figure to sort of focus the plot. And I never really found the Nick focus to be that big of a deal, because I found all the other characters to be very memorable. Even if they didn't all get the same amount of spotlight or focus or development or whatever, they all had very memorable personalities and episodes that I can think of. I really liked Vita. I thought she was a very different Pink Ranger. She stood out to me. I love Xander and Plan Xander and his charm and Chip's nerdiness. And Madison was arguably the only one that didn't stand out as much, but that's kind of how she stands out, because that was her character. She was shy. And yeah, so I don't really see that complaint, because there's certain series where a main character will overshadow the others so that I can't even remember them, but this one, everyone was so distinct for me. And what I also love about Mystic Force is I love the lore of it. Also, having seen Magi Ranger, they do sort of use some of the similar framework, but they both feel very different. If it makes any sense, Magi Ranger has a much more magical-y feel. Well, I guess this is very, like, basic, but Mystic Force definitely has a much more mystical magic feel. It's more like a medieval-y magic, and magic is, for Magi Rangers, more like a pure, just magic, if that makes any sense. It's a totally different vibe, and I love this sort of more medievally mystical vibe that Mystic Force went to, hence the name. And I liked the lore behind it. I liked some of the changes they made to it, and just made it their own. But perhaps what might just be my favorite thing about Mystic Force is actually, I think it has the best supporting cast of any PR series. And a wide range, too. I mean, you have, like, the Rockporium cast with Toby, and then Lily, who's part of the villains, but she was sort of there in the Rockporium as well as undercover. And then you have the Forest with Phineas, and then Claire. And it was just this great supporting cast that all got their moments to shine also. And they really added to this larger cast feel of Mystic Force that I just really loved about it. And also, what I like about it as well is because it was a shorter season, because we started getting shorter episode counts, it had a lot tighter storytelling. There was less time for filler, and when we did, there was almost always something happening. And sure, maybe it could have gone a couple more episodes, but to maybe stretch things out a little bit, but I like that tighter storytelling. So I think it's really an underappreciated season that I really love a lot. And even though the theme songs are kind of controversial, I do kind of dig it, and the instrumental music for it is amazing. Like, just listen to the music whenever they do their finishers. It's epic. Okay, number 3, Dino Thunder. Okay, so a lot of people would say, or think when you list Dino Thunder on a list, I think it just got number 1 on one of these lists that just came out, you think it's because of Tommy. And that's not it at all. But to be honest, there's been a lot of Tommy hate around a lot, but when I still do like Tommy to some extent as a character, and that is a really cool part of the season. I thought it was neat to bring him in as the mentor, to sort of tie it back to that history. I really like Legacy of Power as sort of a cool little episode commemoration thing. And it was just an overall, just a really neat thing. And at the time when Dino Thunder came out, it was really special because we hadn't been hammered with all these returns in Sentai and Rider, and then PR, people wanting returns in PR. So it was a special thing at the time. So I like that part. But to be honest, even if Tommy wasn't in it and Dr. O was just another scientist guy, Dino Thunder would still probably be one of my favorites, because even though that is an element of the series I like, it isn't everything I like about Dino Thunder. I really love the cast a lot. What I like a lot is how they're not perfect. A lot of what was annoying about some of the especially early Saban stuff is how perfect everyone was, but I liked that they weren't perfect. I liked that Connor was kind of a jerk, and his arc was about becoming less of a jerk, but just because he wasn't a goody two-shoes didn't mean he couldn't be a ranger and do good. I liked that they were all imperfect. And it's also a series I have a lot of fun watching, and I like the unique concept of Mesogog not wanting to take over the world and actually turn it back to dinosaurs. And I love his performance, both as Mesogog and Mercer, and the unique Jekyll Hyde-ness of that villain structure. I will admit there was kind of an underwhelming reveal of why Zeltrax hated Tommy. It was like, my name used to be Schmitty, and I got turned down for a job. I don't know why he had that voice all of a sudden, but there's just a lot I like about Dino Thunder that has absolutely nothing to do with Tommy, so yeah, it's not all about that. There's something else I was going to hit on with that. Oh, and I like how, because there's nothing really like MMPR in terms of plot structure, but it still feels like it's homaging it, obviously, with the title of the first episode and then the motif being used, which is from Japan first, but it feels like sort of doing a modern day MMPR in a way, but without trying to make it MMPR, like what some of the stuff Samurai Through Megaforce was doing, with using the same music and the same humor and the same sort of goody two shoes vibes. I like that it felt like a modern day sort of homage to it while being its own thing and not trying to recreate 90s cheese. But yeah, Dino Thunder. Cool beans. Okay, number 2, RPM. Now, objectively, I think RPM is the best season in my personal opinion. There's a reason that number 1 is my favorite, but RPM I think is fantastic. I love that it's standalone. It gave them a lot of freedom. And the post-apocalyptic setting, while you could argue, is overdone in the broad spectrum of media. It was not done in PR before, and it was really cool to see. It gave us some really unique, sort of darker things, and I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, it has to be gritty, but it was nice to see those more mature elements and something different from what PR has done, and structure-wise, and the characters. I love every single one of the Rangers. In fact, like when I'm trying to mentally think of my top list for potential Ranger videos, almost all of them make it into the lists of the various colors because I like them so much, and I love that we devoted an episode to them each, so they each had such unique characters for me and so memorable also. And Dr. K is just such an amazing and tragic character as their mentor. And the Boom twins, Gold and Silver, also, they're so much fun to watch, but there's also so much, there's a deep reason behind why they are the way that they are. There's just so much I like about RPM, and all the while it's doing a little bit more intense stories, it's still a funny series. It's not afraid to make fun of itself, like I mentioned with Ninja Storm, right down to making fun of the explosions or the archetypes of the Rangers. It's such a great season. I really wish we could have seen it finish the way it was intended before Eddie left, but still, I think it's the best season personally, but it's only number 2 on my favorites list. Okay, number 1. Most of you probably saw this coming, is, for me, Power Rangers in Space, which I still think is an amazing series, even though I think technically RPM is a little bit better. But the reason In Space is my number 1, I'm probably going to be repeating a lot of the same points for my In Space video, but is because it sort of encapsulates what I love about Power Rangers. What makes it unique from the other toku I watch is that it has this shared universe. It was messy as all hell from MMPR through In Space. Not always messy, but definitely messy. But I loved that we had this shared universe and we were taking suits and concepts from all these different series and mashing them into one giant narrative instead of just doing the individual ones, which obviously there's stuff I like about that later, but it made it really unique. And In Space was this great payoff to 6 years of world building, and not to mention, even without that, not without it, but I mean in addition to it, it still managed to have its own storylines, like with Andros and Astronema, which were new storylines, which were amazing. I mean, having this main villain have this tragic story and starting to get villains that were actually sympathetic and multi-dimensional characters. So having that stuff being added on top of already being a payoff to 6 years of story is basically why In Space is my favorite. And I don't want to go on too long just because, like I said, it was basically the same points as my In Space ramble. But yeah, there you have it, my top 5. Some opinions are seasons that lots of people like, some aren't, but yeah, that's my opinions. Like I said, feel free to leave your top 5 in the comments or make another video. Let me know how you like this. I'm definitely planning on doing a few more. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I'm thinking either top 5 Rangers, top 5 Super Sentai series, or top 5 Kamen Rider series. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, just let me know, or let me know on Twitter what you want me to do or what you like and all that stuff. And yeah, thanks for watching me just talk about nonsense for maybe 20 minutes. I'm not good at time. Until next time, make sure to check out the Crazy Podcast at writersrangersrambles.com. And of course, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, Dosm Writer, signing out.